Good evening, everybody. 6 o'clock on the Eastern Standard Time, and this is segment 3 of 3. Little fired up yesterday, and those of you that haven't watched segment number 1 or segment number 2, they're posted on our locals. They're also on my public figure page as well as Tammy Clark's public figure page. So if you haven't been a part of locals, I'm going to start out by making sure that we cover that, and that is go to standupmichigan.com, and you can see a button there that will allow you to join locals for 12 months free. It is our social media platform that is free of censorship, where we can post these videos and not worry about, again, censorship like we have with the other platforms, including some of those that we're using today. But they're available to us. We're going to use them as long and in any way that we certainly can. Those of you that joined are aware that we're doing the stand-up counties. That's in segment number 1. It's talking about our strategic plan going forward with 2021 and 2022. Make sure you watch that. And segment number 2 was really identifying where we are today in the state of Michigan, where we are with the governor's unilateral decisions and lockdowns. And I wanted to I know I'm going to talk a little bit about some national issues, because it's important for us to know from both President Trump and what he had to say the other day, and also what this administration is doing and how quickly they're attempting to destroy, in some ways, affect the American way of life permanently. Any damage they can do, they were prepared before this election result ever transpired. So, but from yesterday with the state of the state, there have been a couple of things that have transpired. I want you to be aware that tomorrow there have been some calls to action. Some people, I'm sure, that are watching this have participated in those, and that is calling our Republican senators and making sure that that they do their advice and consent, and that they reject the nomination of Elizabeth Hertel as the new DHHS director. It is critical that this happens. I'm going to have much more on this probably tomorrow. There's going to be potentially a very, very important call to action, again, to make sure that this happens. But I know we mentioned it yesterday, but you read the stories of the payouts and the buyouts that happened with multiple people in various agencies under this governor. Each of these signed documents were done in ways that were to stop them from talking about what transpired while they were in the department, or communications they had while they were in the department, and decisions that they supposedly made, but we really know they probably didn't ultimately make those. They were made by the governor and her administration, and they have been used as a pivot because the Supreme Court said 7-0 that she could not operate under the 76 law, and struck down the 1945 law as unilaterally unconstitutional going forward. Therefore, the only thing she could do was pivot to the health department and Robert Gordon at the time. But now we know that he resigned, that he left, that he signed an agreement, that he got a huge payout. And honestly, this Elizabeth Hertel, the new appointment that was done immediately, has been in that department, has been involved in some of these decisions. I'm not saying they were hers, but I don't believe they were his either. The reason I'm bringing this up is that tomorrow there is another hearing before the Senate committee to ask her questions. This will be the second one of these such hearings, and the first group of questions I will be covering tomorrow in a separate live. But I wanted you to be aware that this is coming, and I really need you to pay attention to this particular call to action. We're going to need thousands of you to act in order to get our Senate to do what is right, and that is to reject this nomination. This individual, Ms. Hertel, has refused to go before the House Oversight Committee, and there are letters specifically from members of the House that are demanding communications and information from her during the time of her being at the department. Again, she's refused to testify there. That's enough reason all by itself, the complete and utter lack of transparency. And the questions and the answers the questions she was asked and the answers that she gave will display for you, and certainly for these senators, ultimately, where it is that she stands. It's important that we understand that, because she controls every aspect unilaterally of your life. Remember, we blame the governor, we blame the law that they were operating under, but you have to understand that this director says that she has unilateral control for as long as she sees fit that there is an emergency to control capacities of gatherings, your businesses being shut, your own homes. And we can refresh the topic again, that you are now allowed to have 3 family groupings of 5 each, a total of 15 people in your house on the property that you own. Again, factories, no problem. We are able to have 50% capacity starting the end of the week. And again, the curfew, which was at 10 o'clock, is now going to be 11 o'clock. The virus, I guess they figured out, doesn't come till an hour later in the evening. These are good questions for her, as well as many others, to find out exactly what metrics, exactly what data, exactly what level of vaccinations need to be provided to those that are in the underlying health situation or certain ages. Where exactly do we have to get in order for us to be freed up and opened up, like Texas and like many others have, leaving it to the individual businesses and individual people to make decisions for their own individual lives? Ultimately, this governor has to go in 2022. But until then, we have got to make sure that we can get back control of our state. And that happens through sometimes the legislative process, sometimes the legal process. And in this particular situation, we have momentum here. We have a lot of things that happened with this previous director, Gordon. We have a lot of questions for him and for these people about these agreements, these payouts, and they are asking the tough questions. There was a GOP a press conference on the Capitol steps yesterday that, again, that Senator McBroom and Steve Johnson asked. Steve Johnson's getting airtime on Fox News. There's a lot of this that is getting covered on a national basis. And as far as Michigan goes, we have got to hold the line. We've got to make the very, when I say not difficult decisions, to reject this person or anyone else that has been in here locking us down since last October. That's been the health department since October 2nd. October, November, December, January, February. Best I can figure, this is the 6th month that the health department has locked you down, shut your business, and affected your life and the schools and the sports. And it was only because of people from her own base that began to finally say, we've had enough, that she decided, oh, okay, we'll let you play some sports. The facts are that we have got to make decisions, and they sometimes are tough decisions. This one should not be a tough decision with what we know, with what she said, what she hasn't said, and specifically what we're seeing happening with other people within the agency. And until someone comes forward and answers those questions, which we have every right to know in regards to our transparency in our state, then we are not going to approve any director that's going to unilaterally control our lives going forward. Separation of powers is important. It's something that we have to do. So I want to talk to you about on the national level. We all, I'm sure a lot of you, if you didn't see it live, you saw the CPAC speech or clips of it. It's vital to our whole effort to understand 2 main things the president said. And one is that there will not be a third party. That was pretty much straight up front, right? He was saying that he is going to work on behalf of and for the Republican Party going forward, that the Republican Party is CPAC. It is the conservative movement. It is the grassroots. It's you that are out there. Yes, there are a handful of people that have been elected that have been there for a long time, or in our state, maybe not so long, including Peter Meyer, perfect example, right? Somebody who was elected middle of the road, was glad on the day before the election to get a bump from Trump and tell him how wonderful of a congressman he would be, only to have him, how long, 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, decide to vote to impeach him. Rhino, if we even can call him that. Upton, same situation. He looked for cover. He looked for Meyer to go with him on that vote. And look, they both need to just either become Democrats for who they are, or they need to get out of politics, because we're not going to stand for it anymore, because it is our party. It is a party of we the people, and we are going to rise up and make a difference. There's great hope here. Because number one, we have a president who has not gone anywhere. He is going to be active. He is going to be verbal. He is going to spread the word. He's going to go around the country, and he's going to promote people that are going to run and defend the rights to keep America great. That's going to happen. The 75 million Americans who voted have to stop watching the news and look at the negativity and the division that is attempting to be created within us as a group of people and with us as a party. We're not going to stand for it. We may not agree on every issue, but I can promise you, when you look at this administration and what they have come in with, and they played, again, middle of the road the Biden administration, or should we call it the Kamala administration? Or, as I've been hearing it, maybe it's Obama's third term. A lot of the institutional people that are involved in Washington and are involved in various departments have been there from those days and have caused roadblocks. They blocked a bunch of issues and items that they could while President Trump was in office. They leaked a lot of information in order to cause trouble, and they're still there today. Some of them have hidden in the shadows, as we could say, and some of them have hidden in plain sight. People that have come out and they may even call themselves a Republican or an individual independent or whatever it is. But look, we know who you are. We know what's happening. And these people have been setting the stage, what we call them never Trumpers. And they included a whole bunch of rhino Republicans. They were disastrous. They do not represent the party in which they were originally a part of. And I ask that you make sure that when we do calls to action, that you join me in calling them out when we need to. Again, the future, when you saw CPAC and you saw the gigantic energy that was there and the other people that spoke there, Jim Jordan, incredible speech, Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. If you haven't seen some of those speeches, the governor of South Dakota, so many of these were incredibly, Matt Gaetz, I could go on and on. They gave incredible speeches, all of them based on the conservative movement, our ideals, and defending the rights and liberties of the people of America and defending our religious rights, our freedom of speech, trying to get on top of this whole censorship issue. But the positive news is, and the media doesn't want to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it here. And this will be again posted on Locals, because you never know when they're going to censor these videos. But remember, we ended up with so-called 18 or 19 competitive House races. We were going to lose 20 to 25 seats. It was a foregone conclusion. Even our own party said it's going to be a bloodbath down ballot. Didn't turn out to be so, did it? No, we actually gained about 15 seats. And we did that in winning 18 of 19 competitive districts. It's historic. It's never been done before. Was a lot of it because Trump was on the top of the ticket? Yes. But do you know why it was also? It's because many of those women, many of those women who became freshman House members are incredibly conservative-minded people. These are people that run tough primaries. They're people that battled the establishment and or filled the gap where there were empty or what we call vacated seats, which, remember, there were a whole bunch of Republican vacated seats. And that vacuum was filled by more conservative-minded members than we lost. Those people that we gained the 15 seats, all conservative. And I'm talking about not rhino conservatives, real conservatives. And those people are going to and do have a voice, not only in Washington, but you will see more and more of them throughout media and have a place that will be speaking from one voice. And they are, again, listening to our voice. This isn't just hey, it's the grassroots. We got to listen to what they say. We got to throw them a bone now and then. They understand and recognize we are the party. They win nothing. They win no elections without us. And this is where the growth happens, is when we are not defined as a party, not an independent, not a libertarian, not a Republican, and not necessarily a Democrat either. I'm just saying these are Americans voting for and to support the Constitution, to support our individual rights and liberties. So 3 areas that I want to cover on the national basis. Biden didn't wait very long before he began signing a record number of executive orders. As you know, many presidents in the last few, but nothing like what's happened in this one, have signed executive orders because they simply can't get things through Congress. These executive orders have been broad-based, and oftentimes a year, 18 months down the road, they end up being struck down by the Supreme Court, but they don't care because they've instituted the policies and made it so difficult to retract what it is that they've done. And what he used in a lot of these executive orders were one after the other of canceling areas of protection and regulatory issues that President Trump eliminated to allow us to have freedom of decisions individually, freedom of decisions for our own businesses, to be able to expand certain things, to become energy independent. All of these areas and things that the president did are being undone at a speed that we've never seen before. They've been planning it for years. They hoped he'd leave, walk out, get impeached, whatever it was. And of course, he didn't leave and he didn't lose either. They basically had these all in place, and they are not being done by Biden, as you know. If he doesn't have a teleprompter and he isn't standing there speaking in very, very short sentences, Whether he's got a bug in his ear also, I don't know. But all I know is I've seen some freezes that have happened, and it scares the heck out of me to believe that he's the one who's in charge. And I don't really want us to believe that he is the one calling the shots. It's much deeper than that. So we have all of these fancy names. I mentioned them going in, and I want to talk about them with you now. And that is one of them, which is nobody really knows what it's called, and that is HR 1. HR 1 is an absolutely disastrous. Now, here's what they call it: For the People Act of 2021. How many of you that are writing down here aren't going to say, that sounds good? We the people, right? We're for the people for 2021. This is a great name. This is what they do. They give you a name. It's relief. It's a citizenship act. It's a relief bill. It's an equality act. Well, what's the matter with equality? Well, there is nothing about HR 1 that we should agree with. Nothing as it exists currently. It would be devastating and make sure that no national election would ever be won by we the people ever again if this is going to pass. The House, every single House member signed on and voted in favor of HR 1. All of the Republicans voted against HR 1. Now, that alone should tell you something in the fact that who wants to change national election laws that are only favored by the Democratic Party? How is that for the people of 2021? So I want to cover a few of the things in there, and these are going to shock you, and then I'm going to cover a few poll things because these are the talking points. So some of them might get a little bit in the weeds, but it's important for us to understand. This would seize the authority of states to regulate voter registrations and the voting process by forcing states to implement early voting, mandatory on a federal scale. Automatic voter registration. When we say automatic, we mean automatic. You attend or be a part of any federal agency. That would be agencies from unemployment, agencies for getting your driver's license, whatever agency, state or federal, that you might be a part of or are going to automatically, when they have identified you, is register for you to vote, whether you want to or not. The other interesting thing is it isn't going to differentiate between whether or not you are an actual citizen. It gets deeper. Same-day registration is going to be allowed on Election Day. It caused incredible problems. Again, where we talk about more people voted than are registered to vote in certain areas or jurisdictions, that is because supposedly there were thousands of new people that registered to vote on Election Day. Now, not only did we have 6 months of people having time to get registered, and not only did they have weeks in which to ask for ballot initiatives and to do things by mail-in vote, but now we had to somehow create thousands of so-called individuals, faceless voters, as I call them, who registered on Election Day and no verification was ever done. And we're going to call it no-fault absentee voting. You know what that means? That means, again, that unlike the rules that normally were in place, that you had to have a reason specifically if you wanted to get an absentee ballot, you're going to be out of town, you're working that day, whatever it might be. And our state, of course, passed some other legislation to make it easier for people to say, no, I just want to vote absentee. But they still have to request the ballot. Not only is it no fault nationwide, because a lot of states don't do what Michigan did. They require you to show up on Election Day or to early vote in person or to vote in person on Election Day, or you have to order or request an absentee ballot application, fill it out, send it in, and then the signatures, of course, are supposed to be verified and matched. They're going to make it easier to commit fraud and promote chaos at the polls through this same-day registration, as election officials would have no time to verify the accuracy of voter registration information at all and eligibility of individuals to vote, and could not anticipate the number of ballots and precinct workers that would be required to even cross with these people and identify. And what happens if they just move to the area? Did they also fill out an absentee ballot from where they used to live? Maybe a different city, maybe a different state. We don't know, and I'm going to mention that here in a minute. It will hurt voter turnout through the 15 days of mandatory early voting nationwide. Mandatory early voting. So what happens there? So we can vote in every state. Again, it's not every state that does this. And then it creates all of these so-called ballot boxes. We can get into that for just a second. As you know, Facebook's own Mark Zuckerberg put up $400 million. And this was a get out the vote campaign. This was to help people, make it easier for them to vote. But these grants that were given, which, by the way, the largest number of grants were given to the state of Michigan. Guess where they targeted? Majority of them inner city districts where he was giving them the money to put up these mail drop-off ballot boxes. That's where people can just go dump them off. By the way, no video surveillance. Nobody knows who's dumping them in there, but they're going to spread those throughout all of those areas. Now, my question is, why shouldn't those ballot boxes have been available in Republican areas? Why weren't they available everywhere? Should we just be targeting additional voting opportunities in areas that are minority areas or in high capacity areas? But they certainly were those that vote Democratic. That's exactly what they were doing. It's where the money was targeted, and it is a huge amount of money. Some of the money granted was more money than the area or jurisdiction paid for the whole entire election. That should be illegal. It's something that we have to look at. Degrade the accuracy of registration lists by requiring states to automatically register all individuals, okay? This would register large numbers of ineligible voters, including aliens, and could cause multiple and duplicate registrations of the same individuals and put federal agencies in charge of determining the person's domicile for voting purposes. Constitute a recipe for massive voter registration fraud by hackers and cyber criminals through online voter registration. Again, we're just going to take people and register. Everybody's going to be registered to vote anyway. It's going to be automatic. So everybody that moves in, everybody that's a citizen or not a citizen, we're going to require states to count ballots cast by voters outside of their assigned precincts. Again, all of this is being done to confuse and make it difficult and easier to create fraud. Prevent election officials from checking the eligibility and qualification of voters and removing ineligible voters. So we talked about what happened in Michigan. A court ordered our voter rolls to get rid of a large number of people that had existed on the rolls and should have been gone long ago. As you know, it wasn't until weeks after the election that we purged 177,000 people off of the Michigan voter rolls. Why would that not be done before the election? That's a great question for our Secretary of State, since a court ordered her to do so. But what this does normally is when you get new voter rolls and they are updated, you can share that information, or other states can update that information so people are not registered to vote in multiple states. This bill, H.R. 1, actually prohibits states from sharing information. Does that sound to you like a For the People's Act of 2021? Here's one for you, and this is one that I'm going to cover in the poll. I might as well do it at the same time. It bans state voter ID laws. It bans it nationwide. There will be no voter identification accepted for voting on a national basis in national elections. Again, this is the same party. This is the same governor, let's go back to Michigan, whose unemployment agency demands multiple examples of photo and identification of all individuals before they were able to get the relief they needed to support their families. They were laid off. They were reported laid off. They had their social security numbers. They had their addresses. They can check their tax returns, their previous stuff. It was all there, but it was never enough. In order for us to send you this extra money, we're going to need you to get this unemployment. Some waited 6 months into the fall without any funds or money. 80,000 people that were waiting for months to get their benefits because the state was saying to you, look, if you don't provide us and find a way to upload us multiple forms of identification. By the way, these are major identification. That would be your driver's license. It would be a passport. It would be a birth certificate. It is an absolute requirement. The levels in which they were going to get double forms of identification in order to send you funds for relief during the pandemic at times when they shut businesses and said, you can't work. Your business can't be opened. And by the way, in order to get this money, you need to give us and provide us multiple forms of identification. But this H.R. 1 bill will deny any states from being able to utilize any photo ID of any kind at any national election. If that doesn't make you sick, I don't know what is. And again, the People's Act of 2021 does not sound like it is for the people. It doesn't sound like it's for the nation. It doesn't sound like it's for election integrity. It sounds to me like it is all about fraud and controlling our elections and manipulating what the results are, because they know that we, the people, have come and shown up and are fighting back, and they can't beat us at the ballot box. So they have to beat us in another way. One of the key points here, and these are things that I want you to be able to share with people, and that is to make sure that they are aware that voter identification is I believe it is a 69% of the population believes that a copy of their photo ID should be used not only for absentee ballot, but even for voting in person. They believe 66% to 20% believe that. Should a voter who casts a ballot in person be required to show a photo ID? You ready for this number? 82% of the people believe a photo ID should be shown before voting. You would never believe or notice that when it comes from the other side, when it comes from the liberal media, when it comes for social media. You would never believe that that number is as big as it is. And if it's 82%, it includes a large number of Democrats who also believe that, right? Should mail-in voting be prohibited except under extreme conditions? The total is over 50% of the people believe that unless there's extreme conditions, and again, this pandemic decision was a way to open up all this possibility for this election. It was a way to try and defeat Donald Trump. That's where it pretty much was. So which of the following would you prefer? One proposal that would prohibit states from requiring photo ID before voting, or another that would establish a nationwide rule requiring voters to show a photo ID before voting? And 70% said require a photo ID before voting. These are big numbers. They're the numbers we need to share, because in this H.R. 1, it is banning voter identification. It violates the First Amendment with respect to vast range of legal activities. Voter intimidation and coercion that prevents some from registering or voting is already in the Federal Crime and Voting Registration Act, the National Voter Registration Act. But H.R. 1 would add a provision criminalizing, hindering, interfering, or preventing anyone from registering or voting, which is so vague and broad that basically it would state that if you even question someone for why they were voting, you could be charged criminally. And that gets us to the part that is all about the prohibiting state election officials from participating in federal elections. The states are where it's in the Constitution, folks. The states run the elections. The legislatures are in run of it. These same courts, by the way, that refused to hear a lot of these election cases were done on the grounds from a federal level is that the states had the jurisdiction, right? You've heard this 100 times. And they were willing to quote that. Oh, the Supreme Court can't react because it's up to the states. The states should have done this. They should have sued earlier. They should have created these laws, whatever it is. Well, this would prohibit state election officials from even participating in federal election and impose numerous other ethics rules on those that are unconstitutional, on unfairly restrict political activity. It would transfer the rights to draw congressional districts from the state legislatures to independent commissions. Well, we already voted for that, folks. You all voted on it, and I know a lot of you Republicans voted on it because they did something just like they did with this. They called it something that was really sounded, we need a bipartisan commission. Well, of course, it's just fair. It's like the For the People Act of 2021. It just sounds good. It's fair. I'm sharing this information with you to know how destructive this is. It's going to be going before the Senate probably in the next several weeks. It authorizes the Internal Revenue Service to engage in partisan activity. It provides money for people running for office out of our taxpayer funds to support them at a rate of $6 for every dollar they raise would be supplied and paid for through the federal government and yours and my tax dollars. It's an unbelievable, ungodly amount of money. And again, what is the purpose? It is nothing to do with For the People Act of 2020. COVID relief bill. I want to touch on that because we're almost running out of time here. I had so much more to talk about, but these just show you some of the things. COVID relief bill is not about relief. There's nothing relief in it. As you probably heard, and this is something you need to repeat in regards to this because the parliamentarian made a decision. They threw the $15 minimum wage, which would destroy small business. It would be a horrible thing. It would cost, we already know the budget office, 1.4 million jobs lost. if the relief bill passes. Does that sound like relief to you? $15 minimum wage, the parliamentarians said, cannot be done under reconciliation, which means they need to have 60 votes in order to pass it. They're going to simply say, override them. The vice president should override. Well, we believe we've got some senators that are going to be on record that aren't going to allow that override. And so we believe that will be stripped from this bill before it goes into the final number. But here's an interesting about the relief. 1.9 trillion additional dollars. States like Texas and others are completely opened up. We need to, if anything, support those businesses and being successful moving forward and not provide broad range so-called relief, because this is not about relief. 9%, are you ready for this? 9% of the $1.9 trillion goes to relief for this year. The money that's supposed to go to schools, are you ready for this one? Only about 30 billion, I believe it is, dollars are actually going to support the schools and education this year. And a whole bunch of this so-called COVID relief is going to the schools next year and the year after, and it might even be the year after that. That is disastrous. It is a bailout of the state unions. It is because the tax dollars aren't going to be there in order to support the schools. And there's going to be cutbacks because we're pulling kids out of school because of what's being taught or not taught, and mask mandates and other things that are being done. And they can't survive without the students. Therefore, this relief dollars will continue to plug holes for years to come. Your grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to pay the bill for this so-called COVID relief bill. We also have the U.S. Citizen Act, and we're going to cover the Equality Act. We're going to do that right before we close. The Equality Act has nothing to do with equality. Nothing whatsoever to do with equality. This Equality Act bill is an attempt to strip every religious institution of its 501c status. It is attempting to step on the separation of church and state by literally prohibiting churches from being able to use their religious status in order to say, we will not follow these rules of this Equality Act. And those mean men using women's bathrooms. It means the transgender things. It means whatever they decide it means are going to be the Equality Act. And the church must accept what the federal government is saying to them, or they cannot be exempt any longer. This is an assault, an all-out assault. And when we say the churches need to get involved, this will be my last thing for today. The churches have to wake up and realize they are under assault, like it or not. Read what's in these, understand what's happening, get with their legislators, no matter who they are, because there are a lot of Democratic Christians who need to stand up for the religious liberties in which are a part of the Constitution and what is protected there. So many of the things that are in the Citizenship Act, by the way, another complete and utter disaster, is a way of amnesty. It's a way to bring in millions of people into the workplace right now, and from all over the world without any standards. And as a matter of fact, it provides these people that are due and eligible for deportation and provides them with taxpayer lawyers in America, for God's sakes. This is a disaster. I'm telling you, there are 5, 6, 7 bills, and they're coming one after the other, and they're hoping you're not paying attention. They're hoping you're going to pay attention to Dr. Seuss books. They don't mind if you're there. You can be angry about that all you want. And why they're doing that, they're going to slide through. They're going to get rid of our energy independence. They're going to, as you see with the gas prices, they're going to be up $1 a gallon in the first 3 months of this presidency. If you don't think that has something to do with the decisions of this administration, you're crazy. Share this video and share this information with those there. I will be doing updates on this and the state and Stand Up Michigan on a weekly basis going forward. I want to keep these videos shorter so that they can be shared and they can be watched and viewed. And we ask you to share them on your own personal profile pages, or email a link to people that are on your email list, because it is important for us to understand that this isn't just about the president not being in office. It is about the destruction of the American way of life, the destruction of our freedom and our liberties. And it is an attempt to take over America as we know it, to provide a global reset, as they call it, and to have us basically be stripped of everything that we were founded on, everything we stand for. And we, as the people of America, are not going to allow it. We're working hard both behind the scenes, but we need to join together in astronomical numbers and make our voices be heard. So I want you to have a great evening. I want you to pass along again each of these 3 segments. And next week, I will have more for you. I will let you know ahead of time what those segments are going to be about. But tomorrow, there is likely to be a very, very one of the most important calls to action that we're going to have, because these decisions we make and the pressures we put on certain people right now are going to determine how long these lockdowns and these unilateral decisions to affect your life are able to stand. So join me tomorrow, possibly with an extra live call to action. But until then, have a great evening, and we look forward to working with you. And stand up, Michigan.